Welcome, my friends. Sit close, come close. Let me tell you a tale tonight. But first, some warnings. Do not listen if you are alone. If you are listening alone, it's already too late. And whatever you do not turn off the lights. Because what you are about to hear is not just a story. It is a doorway, a curse that will cling to your soul long after this night ends. There was a time when men did not know what to do with the dead, so they buried them deep within the earth, deep within the belly of mountains, deep under crumbling monasteries, deep below a forgotten forest at the edge of civilization. Nestled against the roots of an ancient oak lay an abandoned library. Built during the waning days of the Ottoman Empire, its purpose was to preserve forbidden manuscripts, grimoires and heretical texts whose very presence could taint and twist the mind. For centuries, it stood untouched, sealed behind stone doors. That is until one day when a wandering hermit stumbled upon it, drawn by an unseen force. Curiosity gnawed at him, and so he pushed aside the fallen stones, descended into darkness, and vanished from the world. And there you have it, a moment of suspense, a pause in the narrative to build anticipation and make sure you are still there listening. But now the story is going to continue. The old man who told me this tale was a historian named Ethan. He was young, even younger than I am now, but his obsession with all things arcane and accursed had aged him beyond his years. When I heard his story, I thought it was just another of his tall tales, a myth made up to frighten impressionable young scholars like myself. But then he showed me the book. It was unlike any book I had ever seen. Bound in leather, yes, but stretched taut over the cover were sinews, tendons, something uncomfortably like human skin. The lines of the weave seemed to writhe beneath my touch, and the surface rippled as if breathing. Ethan told me he found the book in that subterranean library, deep in the bowels of that cursed monastery. And ever since he brought it home, strange things have been happening. Sometimes at night, he swears he can hear whispers echoing from its pages, muttering in some forgotten tongue, "Remember us," or was it "Read us?" He wasn't sure. Ethan was desperate to find out, and I was caught up in his fervor. "We should open it," he said, his eyes shining in the lamplight. And so we made a pact to read the book together, and I agreed. As soon as he opened the first brittle page, a blast of frigid air shot out like a tomb, and the hairs on my arms stood on end. Then came the whispers, slithering around us like smoke, curling into shapes that seemed to claw our minds. Whatever language they spoke, whatever story they told, it was clear they wanted to be heard. They begged and pleaded with voices dry as autumn leaves. I wanted to run, to flee, and never look back. But as I turned to go, I saw the shadows on the wall. They writhed and crawled, moving in ways that made no sense, independent of the swaying flames, as if animated by unseen hands. Then my gaze fell upon the ink. It bled, seeping across the page like fresh blood. Fear pricked at me, but curiosity held me fast. I knew I should leave, but something kept me rooted to the spot. I couldn't tear my eyes away from those dancing shadows. Then it happened. My finger brushed against the page, and for a fleeting moment, I felt a searing pain, as though a needle dipped in molten lava had pierced my skin. Startled, I drew back to find a single drop of blood on my fingertips. It tumbled from my grasp and splashed onto the open book. In an instant, the lock on the book burst open with a scream that was not mechanical, but undeniably human, like a soul suddenly set free. The lantern sputtered and died, plunging us into absolute darkness. And that's when I heard them. Pale faces without eyes hovered in the gloom, silent, sorrowful, yet somehow accusing. I could feel their gazes boring into me, and terror lent wings to my feet. I ran, stumbling blindly through the suffocating dark, my heart a drum in my chest, my breath catching in my throat. Behind me, I could have sworn I heard disembodied whispers, "Run, don't stop, never escape," or was it "Run, don't stop, we'll catch you"? As my fingers brushed against the wall, I felt a sudden chill. The air grew icy, and a voice whispered in my ear, my own voice, but warped and filled with malice. It spoke of secrets best left buried, of horrors glimpsed in forbidden texts, of truths that would unravel the very fabric of sanity. It told me things I'd never known, never imagined, secrets I never wanted to hear. In the distance, a flicker of light beckoned, and with renewed hope, I surged forward. The voice grew louder, more insistent, urging me on, promising release. But when I reached the opening, when I stumbled out into the dusty sunlight, the book was nowhere to be seen. Confused and shaken, I turned back to find the entrance vanished. The wall was smooth and featureless once more, as though it had never yielded a doorway. Panic clawed at me. I searched frantically, but the opening was gone. I was trapped, imprisoned in this cursed monastery, with no way out. And then I heard it again, that whisper, beckoning, calling. And as it drew me back into the darkness, I saw him, or rather something that wore his form like a shroud. It floated before me, tall and gaunt, faceless, featureless, its hands too long, its eyes empty sockets that stared into my soul. With every step it took, its form shifted, coalescing and dissipating, coalescing and dissipating. Nails scraped against the shelves, sending tremors through the labyrinth. And all around me, the shelves shifted, moved, pulsed, breathed. Ink wept from their spines, tracing paths that writhed and twisted like living things. The air thickened, heavy with whispers, murmurs that rose into a deafening chorus. They swirled around me, weaving a tapestry of sound that threatened to unravel my sanity. They chanted my name, their voices scraping against my nerves, digging into my brain. It was a song of power, of possession, of souls claimed and damned. Then they fell silent, and I was left in suffocating darkness, surrounded by the ghosts of countless whispers. Taking a shaky breath, I began to explore this endless realm. What I found was a labyrinth built from bookshelves. Some whispered secrets as I passed, sharing tales of sorrow and despair. Others wept ink, painting the floor with their anguish. Still, others seemed to breathe, their pages turning as if alive. But the deeper I ventured, the more disoriented I became. Time twisted around me. My watch spun backwards, its hands tracing paths in reverse. And then I saw them, shards of glass scattered on the floor, reflecting the dim lamplight, showing me not what was, but what might have been, showing me my own reflection. But something was wrong. The stranger smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes, a smile that spoke of things best left undisturbed. My blood ran cold, and I looked away, wishing I hadn't. For as I fled, I heard his laughter echoing behind me, a hollow sound that mocked my fear. And then I saw him again, gliding silently through the labyrinth, his gaze boring into my back, his presence a weight that pressed upon me. No matter which path I chose, which direction I fled, the labyrinth seemed to bend, contorting itself to keep me within its grasp. And always before me was the candle, burning with black fire, casting grotesque shadows that danced and swayed. And each time I neared it, its flame flickered, as if sensing my approach, and the whispering voices grew louder, more insistent. At last, unable to bear the oppressive silence, I broke down and spoke aloud. I questioned the shadows, challenged the silence, but only my own voice answered me, twisted and corrupted, a mockery of my true self. I tried to stem the tide of madness, to hold on to my humanity, but the labyrinth was relentless. It seeped into my bones, chilling me to the core. Finally, I collapsed at that blood-stained reading table, defeated, broken. And as the faceless figure approached, I knew my fate was sealed. This place, this cursed labyrinth, had claimed me, body and soul. And then he touched me, and everything went black. When I awoke, I was back in Ethan's room, sitting in a chair, the book lying open on my lap. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson. But I was no longer in my clothes. Instead, I wore a long, tattered robe that smelled faintly of mildew and decay. Then I remembered. I was trapped in that forsaken library, lost in a labyrinth of madness. But how did I get back? Had I escaped? Was I dreaming? Or had the labyrinth claimed me entirely? As I rose, my gaze fell upon the book, its pages still open, the blood-red ink seeming darker now, deeper. And then I saw my name inked into the page, still wet. Horror froze me to the spot. They had found me. They were claiming me. And as I screamed, I knew the worst had come to pass. I was trapped forever between two worlds, forever bound to the cursed book, forever condemned to wander the endless labyrinth, forever lost in the whispering darkness. You want to hear the scariest part? The voices rose into a deafening chorus, chanting my name, and they haven't stopped since. And that's when I realized it's still going on. That's why you should never listen alone. Because what you just heard is not just a story. It is a doorway, and it's still open.